Hi, it is a privilege to welcome you to Stand Up and Redo. It is a soulful, honest podcast hosted by me, Petra Demuse, a woman over 50 who is navigating life's most tender transitions with courage and grace. I have weathered the storms of 2 divorces, raised children into adults, embraced the joy of grandchildren, and learned, perhaps for the first time, how to stand comfortably in my own solitude. Each episode explores the profound wisdom that comes with age, the lessons etched in heartache, the beauty found in unexpected places, the laughter that bubbles up in the quiet, and the peace that settles when we stop running from ourselves. With reflections on love, loss, aging, happiness, and the sacredness of this one wild and precious life, Stand Up and Redo is a companion for anyone who's learning to live fully after everything they thought would last has changed. This is a space for late bloomers, deep feelers, and fierce survivors. Come for the comfort, stay for the truth, and leave a little lighter each time. Welcome to part 2 of living with addiction or living after addiction. And I guess from the first one, you could figure out that this few-part series is actually about the person who is living with another person, or has a friend or a family member, someone that they love or care for, who is suffering from addiction. And that's what I want to make it. I want to make this fair. I want it to be about my feelings. I want it to be about my experience so that I'm not making assumptions about what another person was thinking or how they're feeling when they're suffering with addiction, because I am not an addict. I don't understand it. I think that's the problem with addiction, is that we don't always understand addiction if we don't have it ourselves, and we're struggling with it because it's not something when you're a kid that you go to school and they teach you about. And it's not even something at church, if you're involved in a church, that they necessarily just talk about until you're in it. And then you seek help, and hopefully you seek help from the right people, because some people that give you help don't know about it themselves, and we're all trying to figure this out. Of course, now there's specialists, and there's a lot of literature and evidence-based research on it, which are the things I've reached out for to learn about addiction. But just the journey of watching someone you love spiral down is something that it's hard to relate to. And that's what I want you to feel. I want you to feel supported when you hear this. And if you're in a situation that you are with someone else who's suffering from addiction, I am not a specialist by any means, but I just want to share some of my own personal experiences so that you can feel like there are other people that maybe are suffering or struggling, and I'm not suffering, but struggling with what you are struggling with. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about anger and being like pissed off and being out of control and being frustrated with addiction. And I am a slow to anger person. I truly believe that. It takes me a long time to get angry. And then when I do get angry, I can't stay angry. I remember being so mad at my husband, actually both of my husbands, and getting really angry for some reason. And then I would be like, that's it. I'm not going to talk to him. I'm done. I'm just so mad. And then by the next couple hours, I was like, hey, what do you want for dinner? It's I couldn't stay mad. I just would try my hardest to stay mad. And it's not something I can honestly tell you. I almost feel like the few times I've gotten really, really angry, I can almost count on one hand, maybe. And a couple of those times are the times I'm going to talk about right now, is anger. And I want to tell you a story. This is not even a funny story. I'm laughing about it because of what I did in this story. But okay, here goes the first story. I am with a person, I won't say who it was, who was suffering from addiction. And that person wasn't a husband or anything. It was another family member. And I had spent a couple days helping that person move into a new place. And I always had like a big old minivan or a pickup truck. So usually when friends would have to move, would be that person that would help you move, might take out the seats in the minivan, load up a couch, move it. And I had been with this person I cared about, helping them move, and was so excited because I knew that they were suffering from addiction. And this couple of days that I was with them, they were just talking about how they were on the right track and they were doing really well. And I was elated. I was so joyful because I'm like, they're doing great. I'm so happy. And I felt so special helping them move because I felt like we were moving on up, to a better place with this person. And, you feel joy when they get better. And you will see someone, if you know someone with addiction for a long time. I do feel like, maybe not every person who suffers from addiction does have times when they get better, but most of the people I knew did. And it's kind of like, it's like seeing a long lost friend or a long lost family member. They come back. Like, I hate to say they disappear when they're in the midst of their addiction. Even when they're right next to you, they disappear. When they're right next to you, you look in their eyes and you don't see, you're like, you want to knock on their forehead and say, are you in there? Where are you? What happened to my person that I loved? And then when they come back and they're clean for a little while, it's just like this joyful experience. And unless you've been through it, I guess you might not know what I'm talking about. But if you've been through it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, this person was in that moment when I could make eye contact with them. I could talk to them. We could talk sensibly. They could talk to me for long periods of time without disappearing or going off into that falling asleep, nodding asleep while I was next to them. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but what I'm going to get to the point is I had said they didn't have a car for a brief time, and it wasn't like they lost their driver's license or anything, but this person didn't have a car at that moment. And I said, oh, well, what about the bike that I gave you or let you borrow? I had a real expensive bike that I had bought for my husband, and it was a really nice one. And I had let the person borrow the bike, and the person goes, oh, well, I don't have the bike right now with me. I'm like, what do you mean? Where's our bike? And it was like, my husband's bike. So of course I think of it as our bike because we were together. And the person said, I had to leave it with this drug dealer because when I was in the I had to leave it there because I needed drugs and I had to leave something behind. I don't know. I don't understand that whole thing where you leave something there and then you go get it later. I don't understand it. But the person said, I can go get the bike if you just give me a ride over there to get the bike. So, and the other thing that was interesting is I just gave this person $100 because there was a painting there that the person had and they were going to sell it. And I was really upset that they were going to sell this painting because I was like, that's a painting from our family. You can't sell that painting. And I bought the painting and I gave the person $100. So they had $100 in their pocket. And we drove over to Wildwood and swung around to go get the bike. And I was just, tell me where the address is. I'll wait outside. You go run in and get the bike. And the person goes, please listen, there's all these one-way streets. Just drop me off right here. You swing around 2 or 3 blocks up the one-way road. Come back around, because I think the house must have been on a one-way road. Can't remember, but either way, it was a situation where I dropped the person off, and then they were going to meet me with the bike at this other area that would be real easy for me to pull over and stop. And I think they even said they were going to go get the bike. And sorry, it was me clicking with my mouth. They were going to go get the bike. I'm trying to remember. This is where I don't recall. Either way, this is an insignificant detail. I was supposed to meet the person with the bike, and we were going to la-di-da be on our way and drive back to resume what we were doing. And as I come around the corner, after driving where I was supposed to meet the person, I see a police car. I'm like, okay, there's a couple police there. And I see my person, I call him my person, handcuffed. And I see the cop take his hand and put on top of my person's head. And the person's being, assisted into the police car. So I pull over and I immediately think, oh no. I'm going to say he is being arrested because he was just in a situation, and it wasn't like he was buying drugs, getting drugs, but I knew the guy was a drug dealer that he was going to pick up the bike from. And I'm like, my person's being arrested. I got out of my truck and I walked over to those cops and I said, I think you're making a mistake. And I started to explain to the cops look at me like I'm nuts, first off. I walk right up to them and I said, I think you're making a mistake. That person was not buying drugs. We had just had a bike left there and he had to go buy the bike back. And it's my bike. And the cops were looking at me like, look, lady, you're nuts. So the cops were irritated with me, of course. And, I'm the most insignificant thing in that whole scene. And I don't even know what I was thinking. So they say to me, follow us to the police station, right? So I get in my pickup truck, or not my pickup truck. Oh no, I was in the pickup truck this time. My husband had a pickup truck, so we had driven the pickup truck over to pick up the bike. See, I'm sorry that I'm getting my story a little bit mixed up, but this was a long time ago. But the story is about anger, so I'm getting to the anger part. And anyway, so I jump in the pickup truck, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we have this problem. We have to just deal with it. I'm just going to drive to the police station. I'm going to pick up my person, and we're going to be on our way. So I get to the police station and I walk in and I can see my person. He is in this area, the back questioning area where there's glass and there's a table, and I can see him just sitting there looking completely forlorn. And I'm having compassion because I'm like, oh my gosh, he's finally doing good. And I'm angry. I see him just sitting in there looking sad. And this just anger wells up inside of me. I can't even describe the anger. And I was angry at the situation. And I always was the kind of person that if you think about an addict and the drug dealer, I always felt like, why do we have so many people dealing drugs in these little shore towns? We were in a shore town. My hometown was Cape May, New Jersey. I lived there until I was 30 years old. So it was hard for me to not understand why we couldn't arrest the drug dealer in these shore towns. For one thing, the shore towns, and forgive me because I don't understand it, so I'm not speaking from having a bigger understanding of this. So I understand that we have a lot of amazing drug force agents and policemen that are out there working really hard to catch, just to help us with stopping drugs and protect. I really think we have to protect our young people from them. But anyway, so I started yelling at the police. I was at the counter and I started yelling so hard at the police about why was this person arrested and not the drug dealer. if they felt like he was buying drugs from a drug dealer. Why was this person arrested? Where was the drug dealer? And I was like screaming at them. And then I started stomping my leg like really hard. I stomped my leg so hard. And this is the thing that I do when I'm angry, and I found out I've done it only twice. But I stomped my leg so hard that it hurt my leg on this like tile floor. I must have looked like a giant child. And I started to cry hysterically. And the policeman looked right at me after I calmed down a little bit. And he goes, "Do you realize we can impound your truck right now?" And I'm like, he's like, "Do you realize that you were assisting him in purchasing drugs?" And I said, "He wasn't purchasing drugs." And they're like, "Well, he has a pocket full of them. He had a pocket full of drugs." So I found out, and he did get my bike though. He did get the bike, so he had the bike with him. The bike was impounded though. I wasn't allowed to take the bike home. I was upset. I said, "Well, can I have my bike?" Anyway, and they said no. But anyway, I looked at the police officer, and I wasn't even like, first off, I didn't care about myself being arrested. I didn't care about them impounding the truck because I knew I didn't do anything wrong. And I just hoped to God that they would figure that out. But they said, "Go wait for him. If you want to wait for him, you can sit on that bench over there." Well, I went over and I sat on the bench, and you go from feeling this extreme elation and like you're this powerful person helping someone when you're moving them for 2 days, and you're sharing in their journey of recovery, and you feel this extreme joy, to feeling like helpless, out of control, frustrated, overwhelmed, sick, physically sick. You feel like you're physically going to be sick, because knowing that the person is an addict, if you've actually watched someone spiral into really bad addiction, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So I immediately was just thinking, and at this time, this was before I have a lot more compassion for addiction than I did back then. Back then, I was just like, the anger turned towards the person who was being questioned right at that moment, that person lied to me, that person was pretending to be clean, that they were a liar, and how could they lie? And how could they pretend when and why would they take the money that I gave them for that painting and my bike and use my stuff that I was trying to give them to help them? Why would they take things that I had given them and use for addiction? I didn't know at the time. I didn't understand at the time how debilitating addiction is. I mean, I understood how debilitating it was by watching the people physically spiral down, but again, they say they don't want to be an addict. I really believe people who are suffering from addiction don't want to suffer from addiction. So I was so angered. I was sitting there, and one of the policemen walked over, and he sat the other end of the bench, and he just sat next to me. And you know how you have people who just, he took away, he was a comforting man. He just said to me, he said, I want you to know something. And I looked at him and just was like, "Yeah, what? What do you want me to know?" Because at that time I looked at the policeman like, "You're the enemy. You took my person, and you don't get the drug dealer. You just get the drug users. And why don't you take care of our town?" And I was getting angry, and it's kind of silly because policemen are, oh my gosh, I've had so many policemen that have been so kind to me through my life. Anyway, so he said, "I want you to know I have a sister, and she's the same as your person. And I want you to know, I know exactly how you feel right now. And I know that you I know that this is hard." And he was so kind. So I was sitting there and we were talking, and I said, I guess I'm waiting for that person to be done with whatever's going on. And he said, it's going to be a little while, and I had to get my children from the bus. And I was angry about that too, because I'm like, I had to get back to get my children from the bus, but now I was stressing about who I was going to call to try to get them to get picked up. And I'm still thinking I'm going to stay there, but then I had this light bulb moment. And I just thought, you know what? I need to leave here. I need to leave this person here and not take them, not wait for them. I need to pull away. And I left. I went home. I picked up my kids from the bus, and I went into like one of those like drone states where you're just like a zombie functioning, then just feeling like you're defeated. You truly are defeated. And I know that other person felt probably just like I felt, because that person was defeated and sucked into their addiction again. And that story is a really long story, and it actually even gets more interesting. It was a whole thing with trying to rally up it was a whole thing about, it just was very complicated, and I'm going to pull away from that story now because I'm going to keep this story about anger. Anyway, so the next anger story is when, we all know now, I know from the first episode, that when I was talking about a lot of people around me who were addicts, that one of them was a spouse. And I was married from 20 to 30 or 30 years old to my first husband, and loved him, and he loved me. I know he did. But anyway, what I was going to say is we were towards the end of our marriage when, and the full demise, but there were things that he was lying a lot, and I was struggling with some things that I was suspicious of the addiction at that time. And I was one that if I knew I had to have, I didn't fight. I feel like I didn't really fight with, I'm not a fighter. Like, I'm not like, I can tell you, when we were married for many years, I felt like we could talk about things. Like, if we had a financial issue, we would talk about it. And we were really good with it. We were really good with sharing our money, and we never fought about money. We didn't fight about, we weren't fighters. Like, we got along pretty well. And if we had anything that we disagreed with or disagreed on, we usually have a talk about it. And it felt like we could talk. And I always felt like I had a really good marriage that way. But anyway, either way, I had known that I had to address this person about some pretty big lies that I was catching the person in, well, my husband in. I'm trying to be discreet, but this part I will say my husband in. So I had asked my mom to take the kids for a couple hours, because I told her, I said, I have to really talk to him serious tonight, Mom. Or might not even been my mom, it might have been a friend, but I think it was my mom, because usually at night that's where I might have taken the kids. I said, do you mind taking them to your house so that I can be in our house alone with him, and I just need to talk to him. And he came home, and I just thought, I'm going to ask him questions about why he's lying about this, when I obviously, so I put some of the things out there that I wanted to discuss with him, and he was just denying it and acting like it was the weirdest thing. You're watching this, you know the truth about something, and you know it's the truth, but the person looks right at you and tells you a different story or lies about it. And you're trying to, like, it might have been one of these things where I used to get cell phone bills. That's it. In the old days, you would be able to tell where a person was because their cell phone, when you would get the bill, and this might have been what we were fighting about, because this was one of the things I remember being like confused about in the relationship. You could see where the person made phone calls from by what cell phone tower tower it hooked into. And this is something that people now might not even understand, but this was in the early days when we had cell phones. You get your bill in the mail and you could see all these little like cell phone towers or where the phone was connected at. And I remember I think that was maybe what we were fighting about. If not, it was something very similar to this scenario. But I think he would tell me these things like, yeah, I'm going to go help my buddy move. He just bought a new house and I'm going to take the truck for about 3 hours and I'll be over in North Cape May helping him move. And then I might have gotten a cell phone bill like, a couple of weeks later. And on that Sunday when he said he was going to help this buddy move for 3 hours, he was like somewhere completely different, another town, like 40 miles away or something. Philadelphia, Atlantic City, Philadelphia. I don't know, but it was like, I was like, wait a minute, how are you helping this person move, but yet you're in Philadelphia? And I know I'm talking and kind of laughing about it now, but that wasn't what I was doing when I was looking at the cell phone bill. Trust me on that one. But anyway, so this anger story, the person just slid right to me, my husband just slid right to me, and I was so frustrated. Like, I didn't know what to do. And I did the same exact thing. I stomped my foot on the kitchen floor like a big, giant child. And I was like, how could you be lying? This is so obvious. Like, this is right here. I know this is the truth. And I was like stomping my foot on the tile. And I swung my body around. And my right foot, and I'm not bragging like I'm super strong or anything, but my right foot went right through the cabinet door under this kitchen sink, and literally my whole leg was in under the sink, hole in the cabinet door. I have to get my leg out of the cabinet door. I start crying hysterically. This is anger. And we're going to have a birthday party for my oldest daughter, and had to then spend a week calling all these different cabinet companies trying to find the same exact cabinet to go by the door. I think we had to drive like in Cape May County. There's nothing around. So I think we probably had to drive to Mays Landing or Summers Point or somewhere to a cabinet store and buy this cabinet door amidst trying to work, get ready for a party, take care of 3 kids. And now we had to go find a door so that no one would know that I kicked my foot through the cabinet door in the kitchen. So there's anger for you. And I'm just telling you these stories because I feel like you might relate to them. And I feel like I'm hoping that it just gives insight and that lets people know that you're not alone if you're struggling with this anger or frustration, with people lying to you or struggling with addiction and you don't know how to fix it. It's like, especially if you're a person who likes to fix things. And I'm that person. I'm a fixer. I want to fix things and I want to help and I want to understand. And anyway, so let me think. I'm going to pause for a moment because I have to get myself together. And I had about 2 or 3 more anger stories, and I just wanted to tell you one of them because I know this can get really long. So I'm just going to pause for a minute to try to think about what that story was and recall it. So bear with me here. Okay, this anger story is, I want to say more a frustration story, but you'll relate to it if you've been in with a person suffering from addiction and that you're struggling with trying to figure out what to do in your life and if you're going to stay with that person or leave. Okay, so this is me. I'm sometimes a psycho and I wake up at like 4:30 or 5 and I've done it all my life. Or, and I can't sleep, so I get up and I do stuff like this. This is actually a time that I got up really early and I'm just making this podcast. So I woke up real early and I was thinking about my grandma who lived in Maryland, and I wrote her a letter. Sometimes it's funny. She was one person that I always wrote letters to, and she would write letters back to me, and it was enjoyable, and it was how we stayed connected. We didn't really talk on the phone. We wrote letters, and then I'd go visit her. Anyway, I wrote her a letter. It was like 4:30 in the morning. It was before 5 a.m., and I was going to go for a run, but it was so early. I think I woke up and put my running clothes on because I thought, you know what, I'm up. I had to go to work and everything that day. No, I didn't have to go to work that day. It was a Saturday, and I was like, why am I awake? And I woke up and thought, I'm just going to go running before all the kids get up. That way, and my husband was home, and I was like, oh, he's here. He wasn't home much. He was a fisherman. I thought, he's here. I can get up. I can go running before the kids get up. But it was so early in the morning that it was like pitch dark out. And I thought, I'll wait a little bit. I'll wait till 5:30 to run. So I woke up, made a cup of coffee, and wrote a letter to my grandma. Well, I never usually write letters at 4:30 in the morning, and I never walk out to my mailbox at like 5:30 in the morning. It's not like a usual thing for me to do this. And this is another reason sometimes I think God has a hand in things. He's like, okay, Petra, get up. You need to know about what's going on. Truly do believe this. I know you're going to hear me reference Christ and God. I am a Christian woman, and I have a very personal relationship with God, and I pray all the time. So I pray to God all the time. And this is when I think God was saying, all right, Petra, get up. It's 4:30. Get up because you need to know what's going on. So anyway, I write the letter, and I go to mail it. And I'm happy. I just remember feeling really happy this morning because I was excited about my run. I mean, maybe that's my little mini addiction. I mean, I never got too bad with it, but at this time I was really running a lot. So I go to the mailbox and I put my mail in there. Well, and I see another envelope in there. And I'm like, oh, what's this? And it's an envelope, and it says, and it was for this guy. It had the guy's name on it, everything, and his first name. And I knew who the guy was, and I knew it was a guy that used drugs. And it had like a little joke return address, like from Happy Place. It was like a joke, almost like the return address was like, pretty much, here's your happy stuff from your happy place. And the envelope was sealed, and it had stuff in it. It didn't have a letter in it. It was like puffy. And I opened it, and I didn't know what it was at the time. Now I know it was little brown powdery heroin bags. I didn't know what it was. At the time, I had to call a friend and ask them what it was. And my husband was in the house asleep. And that's another thing. When I have to, in situations where I find something out, like even with my last breakup from my last boyfriend, I found something out about him while he was at my house, and I couldn't even look at him. I just wrote a letter and hid in the other room and locked the door and just cried. And I waited for him to leave. I didn't confront him. And I've done that. I do that often because I can't process when I'm so angry and hurt. I can't process. Like, I'm not the kind of person that will just run upstairs and shake him and just say, how could you do this? Or what's going on? Or what is this? I'm like very non-confrontational, I think. I don't think it's that I'm non-confrontational. I want to be clear-headed and function. And I want to understand before I flip out or talk to the person. And I just couldn't even go up and wake him up. I just couldn't. I didn't know what to do with myself. I think I know what I did. I flushed those things down the toilet. I opened them and flushed. I don't think I flushed the whole baggie down the toilet. Maybe I did. I don't know what I did, but I flushed the stuff down the toilet. And then I'm sure knowing me, I put the envelope somewhere where when he woke up, he'd see it. And I left. I ran out the door. And I was supposed to go. I usually would run like 3 miles. If I ever ran really hard, it was usually 5 miles. That was the most I would run. Usually I always did, ever since I was younger, and I ran cross country when I was in high school. I always, when I go for a run, I'm like, I have to hit, there's this 3 miles mental thing where I'm like, I have to run 3 miles. I can't. Like, I feel like if I don't run 3 miles, I haven't accomplished my run. It's weird. It's like a mental thing. I'm curious if any other runners are like that. But it's like I have to hit that 3.2 mark, or I feel like I haven't completed the run. I don't want to say I failed, but I mean, there were times that I might have just ran 2 miles, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to run 3 miles. So, but I was numb. I went into a place in my head that was, I didn't know why he would have had that drug and why he would be giving it to somebody else. Didn't understand. I wanted him to tell me that, wasn't, I didn't know what I wanted. I just didn't want to believe that we were going to have a demise or an end to our relationship. And I had kids, and I already had a person, another woman, a friend of mine, a person I knew who was really close with me, have her kids taken away from her overnight because her husband was dealing drugs and she didn't know it. And they came into the house and took her kids out of the house. I don't know if they ended up I don't know where they took the kids, but all I thought was, if my kids are ever taken away from me for even one night, I'll lose it. And also, I just wanted my kids to be safe. And I kept thinking about that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have my kids taken away from me, whatever. So I'm like, I went into like a state that was so angry. I was so angry when I was running. I was like angry running. If you ever did that before, oh my gosh. I ran 8 miles. I ran 8 miles hard, like hard 8 miles. I wasn't doing a leisurely jog. I was anger running. And that anger was so intense. And I came back, and usually after I run, I'm like, I feel so good. Well, after I ran this time, I was still in that zombie state, and I went in and I talked to him about it because he was still waking up. Like, you figure this was really early in the morning that I ran 5, so if it was Saturday, everybody sleeps a little bit late, at least till 8 or 9, so everybody in the house when I came back from my 8-mile run was still quiet. It was still silent in my house. And I came in and we talked, and I don't know if it was true what he said. I don't know if it was a lie, but I was happy with the answer. I felt relief, and the answer was that him and this other guy that he had addressed the envelope to, he was driving him home from the fishing boat because they were both fishermen. And there was when he drove him into town, we lived in North Cape May, which is just over the canal on the other side of the Cape May proper. We lived over near the bay. Sorry for the coughing. We lived over near the bay, and this person lived in Cape May proper, and he goes, yeah, when I was driving into Cape May, which you don't usually see cops, I guess every so often maybe in Cape May. I don't remember this a lot. Maybe other people do if they live in Cape May. But he said the cops had a thing where they were stopping cars randomly and just, I don't know, looking in them or whatever, or asking questions, whatever. He said there was he said there was a cop stop, I guess. I don't even know what it's called, where the cops were stopping people and asking them questions. So his buddy had taken the drugs and shoved them in a hiding spot in his truck, in my husband's truck, and told my husband, look, just get him to me tomorrow. I'll pick him up on the way to, I have to go to, I don't know, he was going, I guess, fishing again in the morning really early, and said, just put him in the mailbox, and when I go fishing, I'll drive by your house and pick up the drugs or whatever. And my husband said, okay, I'll do that. Well, that's what he told me he did. That was his story, that it was somebody else's drugs. He had to leave him in the truck because he panicked because there were cops doing a cop stop. And he was just returning his drugs to him. which still upset me, but I was like, oh, my person's not involved in this. This was just a situation he got himself into because of this, whatever. I wanted to believe him. I don't know what the true story is. Maybe that is the true story. I don't know. But that was right kind of before that end of us. It was right when I was, I guess, in denial about everything. And I was choosing to live with addiction, even though I didn't realize I was choosing to live with addiction. I guess I was coming to the point when I was going to have to choose. And again, when I get angry, it's usually that was what was happening to me in that life with addiction, is that I was having such anger. And I'm going to do something. I think I'm going to stop this podcast. And I actually feel like anger right now, thinking about the anger that I had back then. It's so crazy. And I'm going to stop this podcast because I think that it's impactful. And this one truly was meant to be about anger, because I want you to relate to the fact that other people are going through maybe feelings that you're going through. And then I want to make the next one, I'm kind of excited about the next one, not excited about talking about living after addiction, because it's hard to leave. It's hard to leave, but it's not hard to leave. But I want to explain the feelings of living after addiction, and also just self-care, self-love and self-care in the next one. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to tell you thank you for listening. And if anything, I hope this helps you and doesn't, I don't know, I hope it's helpful, these podcasts, for even if just a handful of people. That's what I want this to be about. I want you to feel that you can relate, that there are people that have been through what you've been through, that have struggled with what you've struggled with. And that's what I want you to feel. And thank you. Hi, I'd like to give credit to Sarah Gephardt for the cover page of this podcast. This podcast is a work based on the personal experiences, reflections, and memories of the speaker. The events described are true to the best of the speaker's knowledge and recollection. Some names, locations, identifying characteristics, and timelines have been changed or altered to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. In some cases, composite characters have been created or dialogue has been reconstructed based on memory. The intention of this podcast is not to defame, malign, or harm any individual or entity. Rather, it is to share the speaker's journey with honesty, vulnerability, and integrity. Any opinions expressed are solely those of the speaker and are not intended as statements of fact regarding any person, group, or organization. Listeners should keep in mind that human memory is inherently subjective and selective, and while every effort has been made to ensure accuracy, this podcast reflects the speaker's perspective and truth. Thank you.